Welcome to Dead Souls Social Club.
This audio presentation contains graphic details of death, violence, and controversial subject matter. Listener discretion is strongly advised. From Dead Souls Media, this is The Smurl Family Haunting, the true story of the Conjuring 4. I'm Jamie Black, a researcher and psychologist, and I'll be your host for tonight. One of the most popular horror movie franchises in recent years has dropped its final chapter this last weekend. The fourth part in a series of movies that touches upon the casebook and investigations of Ed and Lorraine Warren. That movie is The Conjuring: Last Rites. I personally haven't seen the movie, so this isn't a review on the quality of the production or the accuracy of its storytelling. Though I did spend a little time watching the first two Conjuring movies back when they were released, which made me want to share a brief episode about the events that Last Rites is based on. And that's, well, because the first two movies, as much fun as they were, played very loosely with the facts in those cases, and for much of them, well, just completely made things up altogether. But that's Hollywood, and I completely get that making an entertaining 90-minute movie for the viewer is what's important. So if you intend to go and watch The Conjuring: Last Rites, or indeed if you have already seen it, then this episode will share the true events that surrounded that case. Facts over fiction, which I appreciate is also a bold statement while discussing the Warrens. Talking of which, we recently dropped an episode about the Warrens over on our Patreon, so if you want to hear more about Ed and Lorraine, head over to patreon.com/deadsouls. The premise of the fourth Conjuring movie relates to the Smurl family haunting, which was an alleged series of supernatural events and demonic activity experienced by the Smurl family of Pennsylvania in the United States between 1974 to 1989. The movie trailer makes the claim that the Smurl haunting was, quote, the case that ended it all for the Warrens. That was their final investigation. To clarify, it wasn't. Ed Warren died on August the 23rd, 2006, and Lorraine Warren died on April 18th, 2019. They claimed to have investigated over 10,000 cases of hauntings and demonic infestations during their career. But let's look at the Smurl family haunting in particular, and see how loyal the movie is to the real-life events. To be clear, and before we go any further, we here at Dead Souls firmly believe in the existence of ghosts, poltergeists, apparitions, demons, and other supernatural phenomena. We can't scientifically explain such phenomenon, but we are confident that it exists. We have experienced phenomena that we cannot explain, and we have experienced supernatural events and instances ourselves. The existence of paranormal peculiarities is not up for debate on this channel. What is a crying shame, however, is the amount of fakes, charlatans, and snake oil salesmen who litter the paranormal field for purely monetary gain or celebrity status, only impacting a genuine scientific area that is badly crying out for genuine scientific evidence, research, and qualified investigation. The Smurl family haunting is the story of a fairly innocuous Pennsylvania home that was alleged to be inhabited by demonic phenomena. In August 1973, the Smurl family moved into the double block, or semi-detached house on Chase Street in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. Less than a year after moving into the house, the family began experiencing misfortunes and negative occurrences which they attributed to the presence of malevolent spirits. The phenomena and attacks on the family continued for more than a decade, until the family finally moved out of the house in 1987. Before the family left, the Smurls' experiences attracted the interest of many professional demonologists, clergymen, skeptics, paranormal investigators, journalists, and supernatural enthusiasts across the continental United States and abroad. This episode is about the time that the devil himself visited Pennsylvania and the Smurl family haunting. Now, from the Amityville Horror House on Long Island, the Enfield House on Green Street in London, East Drive in Pontefract, Yorkshire, and the Stanley Hotel in Colorado, and the Winchester Mansion in California, people have long been thrilled and attracted by frightening and gruesome tales of haunted houses. Stories of demons, apparitions, and spiritual phenomenon conjures up visions of dark, broken, and boarded up windows, terrifying sounds, and lives spinning out of control. But the reality is always far away to the images that Hollywood would have us believe, though no less chilling. In the mid-1980s, located a few miles southwest of Scranton, Pennsylvania, the Smurl family house in West Pittston joined the list of notorious locations to experience demonic entities. The house on Chase Street, like many before it and many after, would draw the curious-minded and peculiar-minded, and thus became a media spectacle. The Smurl family consisted of Jack and Janet Smurl. They have 4 daughters and Jack's 2 parents. After flood damage forced them from their home in nearby Wilkes-Barre, Janet and Jack moved the family the 7 miles to Chase Street in West Pittston. The house was a bit run down, but the family were desperate after their previous home was made uninhabitable. Even today, people still talk about the strange period in the neighbourhood's history, and local children still visit the Smurls' old house after dark, hoping for a spooky encounter. The Smurl story begins in 1973, when the family first arrived in West Pittston, following severe flooding to their previous home caused by Hurricane Agnes in 1972. The Smurl family moved to 330 Chase Street. The house is still there today. You can Google it should you so wish to take a look for yourself. It's just a normal family home on a quiet, working-class street. As I stated, Jack, Janet, and their 4 daughters lived on one side of the house, while Jack's mother and father, the children's grandparents, John and Mary, lived on the other side of the duplex. The Smurls immediately began work on the property, as it needed a bit of TLC, shall we say. But their troubles began shortly after. Subtly at first, of course. Initially, the family attributed odd noises that they were hearing to the age of the house. Floorboards, doors, and walls all creak after all. Water pipes knock, and the wind blows through the eaves in the roof. Icy cold breezes blew through the closed rooms in the dead of summer. But as the noises persisted, the family began to feel a sense of malice and dread, as strange and vexing events began to happen with regularity. Tools disappeared as the family worked on the house. Stains bled through fresh paint. Unplugged appliances would turn on and off. Random parts of the house would suddenly become icy cold with no explanation. Awful and acrid sulphurous smells would waft through the house. Even though there was no issue with the pipes or plumbing, doors would slam shut in rooms with no one in them. And electrical issues would spontaneously occur throughout the house. The family television even burst into flames while the family was sat watching it. But despite these strange challenges, the Smurls were focused on creating a happy family home. Jack had recently received a promotion at work, where he worked as a metal worker, and also began to coach his daughter's softball team. He was a Navy veteran and liked to keep active. Janet was a homemaker, but also volunteered at the local high school. They were said, by all who knew them, to be very doting and loving parents. All 4 of their daughters were doing well in school. Even John and Mary were happy. Everyone was in good health, and things were positive. But as time went on, the Smurl family's experiences at home took a chilling turn for the worse. The once peaceful home began to feel as though it was harbouring an evil or malevolent presence. There was a darkness that had descended over the family house. the family found themselves besieged by a relentless series of unsettling events. Mary and Janet in particular began experiencing disturbing encounters with what they believed were phantom imposters. These eerie doppelgangers would assume the identities of the two women and maliciously sow discord within the family. Mary reported hearing the phantom Janet shouting curses while on her own, whereas her own imposter would call out Janet's name, creating an atmosphere of dread and confusion. According to the family's reports, swirling dark clouds or moving shadows began to drift through the home. These clouds further deepened the foreboding negativity within the house. The spirits the family were experiencing appeared increasingly intent on causing serious harm. As expected, tragedy struck when Jack's mother suffered a heart attack amidst the escalating turmoil. The events then took an unsettling turn when Janet stated that she had been touched by a ghost during the early hours of the morning while sleeping next to her husband. Jack was also awoken from his sleep at 3 a.m. by eerie whispers and moving chatter. He was horrified to witness a dark figure crawling near his wife's leg while the mattress trembled under the weight and pressures of the unseen phenomena. The demonic attacks on the Smurl family escalated into physical and somewhat dangerous encounters, however. A light fixture crashed down from the ceiling, severely injuring the youngest daughter. A demon threw another daughter down the stairs and violently hurled their 75-pound or 34-kilogram German Shepherd dog against a wall. Janet stated that an invisible entity had lifted her off the ground and held her suspended in mid-air before forcefully throwing her across the room. Most evenings would become a nightmarish cacophony of disturbing sounds, grunting and squealing pigs and otherworldly howls echoing throughout the house. Knocks and banging within the walls, hissing coming from all around them. The terror was not confined to just the Smurl family though, as several of their neighbours reported hearing screams and loud voices emanating from the house when the Smurls were not at home. Of all the family members, it appeared that Jack bore the brunt of the harrowing experiences the most at first. He recounted a particularly disturbing encounter where a malevolent spectre bit his ear. Further, Jack claimed that a succubus allegedly sexually assaulted him while he watched television. In another terrifying episode, Jack said that a demon brought him to his knees, forcibly dragging him across the floor and subjecting him to a severe beating while he desperately clung to his rosary for protection. Jack and Janet didn't know what to do. Janet was a devout Catholic and began to pray to God more and more for help. By January 1986, the Smurl family had found themselves in a state of desperation. The haunting was also occurring next door, and Jack's parents were undergoing horrific experiences in their home too. Each of the daughters were having the most horrific nightmares, and the family was in a state of exhaustion and shock. The Smurls reached out to the Catholic Church for assistance, hoping that they knew how to help them. They needed relief from the relentless paranormal torment that was plaguing their previously happy lives. The diocese initially expressed reluctance to intervene, however, citing a need for more concrete evidence before they would act on their behalf. Although a priest did attend the home and bless it, he made no difference to the events that the family were experiencing. So the Smurls reached out to a respected couple known for their expertise in dealing with the supernatural, Ed and Lorraine Warren. These self-proclaimed demonologists were the founders of the New England Society for Psychic Research. They'd achieved widespread notoriety for their investigations into paranormal phenomena across the United States and beyond. They were often guests on daytime talk shows and investigative documentaries at the time. It's how the Smurls came to know who they were. Of particular note to the Smurls was that the Warrens had investigated the notorious house in Amityville, New York, which Jack and Janet had both read about. As I'm sure you're aware, the Warrens' adventures inspired numerous works within the horror genre, including the immensely popular Conjuring movie franchise. Hence, again, our episode tonight. We previously released an episode devoted to the investigations that the Warrens conducted back in 2019. It's episode number 16 if you wanted to seek it out. This is in addition to our aforementioned Patreon episode about them from last week too. Check them both out if you haven't already. Talking about our Patreon, for just $2 a month, you too can sign up to our members channel and get access to a wealth of Patreon exclusive episodes, research material and articles. Plus you'll also be supporting us and our show, which we can't thank you enough for doing so. Head to patreon.com/Dead Souls and sign up if you can. It'll be the best investment you'll make this week, I guarantee. Anyway, upon the Warrens' arrival in West Pittston, it didn't take long for them to assert that the small home was almost certainly a hotbed of abnormal spiritual activity. Ed Warren stated that as soon as he set foot through the front door, he felt an eerie coldness and the presence of something sinister. During the Warrens' first night in the house, Ed kept a crucifix on him at all times and invoked the name of Jesus Christ. Following this, a dark form materialized in front of him, intensifying the sense of malevolence. In a statement to the Times Leader, a local newspaper from Wilkes-Barre Township, Warren bluntly declared, quote, "The ghost, devil, demon, or whatever you want to call it, is within that home."
It's very powerful. It's invisible. I don't care if you want to call it a devil or a ghost or a demon. There's something in this home which has the intelligence to inflict physical and psychological harm upon this family.
While Ed was preparing to confront the sinister entity that dwelled within 330 Chase Street, Lorraine Warren, his wife, who possessed clairvoyant and psychic medium abilities, embarked on a journey through the Smurls' home. She engaged with the daughters in an attempt to coax the spirits out into the open. After conducting various experiments, Lorraine concluded that 4 distinct psychic entities resided alongside the Smurl family. These entities included a benevolent older woman, a malevolent younger female spirit, a man who had met a tragic end within the house, and a demonic poltergeist that exercised control over all of the others. The Warrens held the belief that the head demon orchestrated the chaos caused by the other spirits with the intention of tearing the family apart. Ed proposed that over time the demon had slowly and steadily amassed huge power since the family had moved into the home. The demon had employed extremely cunning tricks and methods to erode the family's mental and physical health. Whilst the dark entity remained intangible, it still posed a grave threat to the Smurls' overall safety and well-being. During his investigation into the Smurl Haunting, Ed Warren alleged that he managed to obtain audio recordings of the demons within the house. Further, he and his wife were witness to items in the smallest bedroom mysteriously moving across the bureau and falling onto the floor. The objects were untouched by human hands. Ed invoked the name of Jesus Christ on several occasions in an attempt to exorcise and forcefully command the malevolent spirits to depart from the Smurl home. The demon and accompanying spirits were too strong, however. They defied Ed's prayers. The local diocese had been extremely reluctant to engage with this situation, and the Scranton clergy were hesitant to attribute the disturbances to demonic forces. However, as the gravity of the Smurl family situation became increasingly more evident, the clergy began to take their circumstances more seriously. Reverend Gerald Mullally, the Chancellor of the Diocese of Scranton, expressed sympathy and understanding towards the Smurl family. He stopped short, however, of making any definitive or specific statements about the case and cause of the disturbances. In an effort to investigate further, Reverend Mullally enlisted the support of Reverend Alphonsus Traybold, a theology professor at New York's St. Bonaventure University. Traybold, however, did not make the journey to visit the afflicted family. Instead, several local priests from the Scranton parish did visit the Smurls, and a number performed blessings and prayers over the family and their home. None of these clergy reported experiencing anything out of the ordinary during their time at the property, for the most part, however. In fact, one such local priest was so focused on witnessing the phenomenon for himself that he spent 2 nights at the Smurl's house. To his disappointment, he said, he didn't encounter any supernatural activity whatsoever. The church leaders grappled with the question of whether an official church exorcism was warranted and should be conducted. Reverend Neil J. Van Loon, the secretary to Bishop James Timlin, offered various speculations about the factors contributing to the Smurl's experiences. The bishop refrained from making any public comments on the matter, though. So, in an act of desperation, the Smurls turned to a priest from the neighbouring state of Connecticut to perform an exorcism on their home. The exorcism didn't provide the desired outcome. Janet Smurl theorized that when threatened, the spirits would evade capture by fleeing to the other side of the duplex. Janet also harbored a notion that the malevolent entities within the home could energetically attach themselves to the family members themselves, even when they ventured outside of the property. As their desperate attempts at spiritual interventions failed to expel the alleged malevolent entities that were tormenting the house, the Smurl family made the decision to go public with their harrowing saga. They did so after many years of torment and against their better judgment. But the family felt that they didn't have many options left. They hoped, at least, that if they went public with their story, that someone somewhere might offer a solution to their endless nightmare. Hopefully someone had gone through something similar and had some answers, some advice, and could help in some way. As you can imagine, it didn't take long for their story to capture the attention of the media, and the news of the demonic infestation spread like wildfire. Soon a curious public began to gather outside the small residence, setting up camp in a display of fascination and empathy. One notable visitor was Jason Miller, the actor renowned for his portrayal of Father Carl in the iconic film The Exorcist. Miller was intrigued by the unfolding events, and he expressed his belief that something unusual was indeed happening within the Smurl home. But the story's growing notoriety drew the attention of various news outlets, local, national, and international. Media giants such as CNN and CBS arrived outside the house, along with the New York Post and numerous smaller stations in New York and Philadelphia. Reporters were dispatched from the UK, Japan, Germany, Spain, Brazil, and Australia to report on the family drama. Camera crews camped out in front of the small West Pittston home for months on end. The Smurl family found themselves thrust into the spotlight of a much larger and more significant degree than they could ever have expected. They became reluctant stars of a media circus. Whilst the Smurls had garnered the support and belief of many paranormal truth seekers and supernatural investigators, they also forced a landslide of skeptics and naysayers upon themselves. The skeptics range from local newspaper columnists to experts well-versed in psychic and paranormal phenomenon. Many vehemently and aggressively labelled the hauntings as nothing more than a hoax, a call for attention, for money, or for fame. Paul Kurtz, the chairman of the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal and a professor of philosophy at New York State University, immediately cast doubt on the Smurls' credibility. He proclaimed that the family's accounts lacked any objectivity and likelihood, and going as far to assert that the Warrens, who were assisting the Smurl family, were untrained non-professionals with extremely questionable motives. Rather than being part of the reputable scientific or parapsychological community, Kurtz asserted, the Warrens instead spouted crazy theories and claims with zero evidence or credulity to support them. Other experts echoed this statement, deeming the hauntings as suspicious and seemingly contrived in a bid to debunk both the Smurls and the Warrens' claims. George Cressage Jr., known professionally as the Amazing Kreskin, embarked on a mission in October of 1986 where he aimed to demonstrate how physical disturbances could occur without any supernatural or demonic intervention. Kreskin, a mental magician by trade, used psychological tricks to illustrate to news reporters how people could be convinced that seemingly violent accidents had supernatural origins, when in reality, they were rooted in mundane causes. Paul Kurtz went further, suggesting that the Smurls might benefit from psychiatric intervention, and that they were using demonology as a means to explain away the challenges which they faced within their lives. These comments were met with staunch objection from the Smurl family. They strongly maintained that their experiences were genuine and entirely real. They stated that at least 30 family members and neighbours had been witness to the phenomena within their home. They believed that the help being offered to them was not addressing the very real and distressing haunting that they were enduring. When the Smurls decided to make their story public, they were entirely unprepared for the overwhelming media frenzy that would surround them. What initially began with a glimmer of hope and excitement soon descended into an exhausting and intrusive barrage from reporters constantly calling their house and camping in their front garden. Their neighbours also suffered at the hands of the media, and their lives were turned upside down, many falling out with the Smurl family as a result. One specific resident on the same street as the Smurl family, named Bill Watson, recalled the intensity of the situation. He stated, quote,
CNN were here on my porch. There was a camera crew from Germany in my driveway. There were so many people here I could hardly get my car out to go to work.
The relentless media attention had turned the quiet, leafy neighbourhood into a chaotic and miserable madhouse. 3 decades later, Karen Smurl, one of the family's daughters, reflected on those tumultuous times in an interview with the Pittston Progress. She stated that her family had endured harassment, with people knocking on their house and even throwing bricks at their home and stones at their windows. Karen emphasised that the family had never profited from the book or movie adaptations of their story. The media scrutiny and public criticism was an ordeal that they wouldn't wish upon anyone, she added. The Smurl family ultimately decided to escape from West Pittston in 1987. They packed their bags, bid farewell to the haunted home on Chase Street, and relocated back to the township of Wilkes-Barre. The occupants, who moved into 330 Chase Street after the Smurls had left, claimed that they never experienced any unusual occurrences during their time living in the house. Deborah Owens, who moved into the house in February 1988, stated that she had never experienced any paranormal activity while living in 330 Chase Street. A man who resided on the other side of the split house also stated the same. It is speculated that the new residents may have been spared the harm because the malevolent spirits followed the Smurls to their new home. The family continued to grapple with their supernatural troubles. That was until a church-sanctioned exorcism would finally liberate them from their misery in 1989, ultimately bringing an end to their ordeal. After more than a decade, the Smurls were finally free from the malevolent forces which had hounded them. Following the Smurls' departure from West Pittston, doubts about the authenticity of their haunting story persisted. In 1988, Robert Curran, a staff writer for the Scrantonian Tribune newspaper, collaborated with the Warrens to write The Haunted, One Family's Nightmare. The book was published by St. Martin's Press. While the book aimed to delve into the Smurl family's experiences, it faced criticism for being very one-sided, sensationalist, and lacked any real scientific credibility. But despite its mixed reception, The Haunted was adapted into a 2-hour made-for-TV movie which was released in May of 1991. The movie was directed by Robert Mandel and starred Sally Kirkland and Jeffrey DeMunn. It holds a score of 6.2 on IMDb and a 64% score on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm told it's somewhat of a cult classic, but I haven't seen it for myself. The question of whether the Smurl family haunting was a genuine case of demonic infestation, or a quest for fame or financial gain, remains shrouded in mystery. I guess we'll never know for sure. Only the Smurl family themselves know the true answer to that one. But irrespective of that, it's undeniable that the story of the Smurl's haunting captivated the public's imagination and left an indelible mark on the cultural psyche of America and beyond. Jack Smurl sadly passed away in 2017. The local news media commemorated his memory with complimentary and respectful obituaries. Karen Smurl, Jack's daughter, publicly paid tribute to her father at the time. For 14 years, the Smurl family, Jack and Janet, their daughters Shannon, Dawn, Heather and Karen, and their dog Simon, endured horrors that they could not explain nor understand. They experienced unexplained noises such as loud banging and pig-like grunting. Foul odours described as smelling like sulphur or rotting flesh. Objects within their home would move on their own. Their pet dog Simon being thrown against a wall by an invisible force. Physical assaults on their family, which included their daughter Heather being thrown down the stairs. And sexual assaults on both Jack and Janet Smurl by a demonic entity. Their story and accounts of their experiences have never changed, not the entire time they went through the ordeal, and in the decades afterwards. Alternatively, and from a skeptical perspective, the Smurl case was met with a considerable amount of critics. Critics who pointed out that the claims relied solely on the accounts of the Smurl family and the Warrens. There was no independent corroborating evidence to what the Smurls claimed that they went through. Neighbours and later tenants of what was once the Smurl house have reported no supernatural occurrences during their time living there. Psychologists have suggested that the family's claims could be due to shared delusions, hallucinations, and other undiagnosed psychological factors. Those same psychologists also commented on the revelation and often overlooked medical history of Jack Smurl, who had previously undergone brain surgery for water on the brain and also had a history of cognitive impairment. Professor and chairman of the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, Paul Kurtz, as we explained earlier, also characterized the Smurls family claims as a, quote, hoax, a charade, and nothing more than a ghost story. Personally, and if you'll allow me the liberty of adding my own 2 pennies to the details presented here, and to give credence to Occam's razor, then I would say it's considerably easier to explain the skeptical explanations away than it is the claims of the family. But what do I know? I'm just taking everything at face value. More importantly, what do you believe? Do you believe the Smurl haunting was a genuine paranormal phenomena? Or do you think that it might have been a gross misjudgment from an overtly religious family experiencing mental, cognitive, or delusional impairment? Was it perhaps a hoax for fame and fortune? You guys tell me. Reach out via email or Instagram, or leave a comment below this episode. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I have lots more to discuss about tales of the supernatural, the existence of ghosts, poltergeists and demons, and why there is more to our world than we will ever realistically know. But I leave that for another episode later this week. Keep your eyes out for that one. I'll leave you guys tonight with the words of Ed and Lorraine Warren. If you ever wondered what a psychic medium and a demonologist considered poltergeist phenomena to be, well, take a listen to this.
Poltergeist is altogether different. A poltergeist will show itself morning, noon, and night, 24 hours a day. When I say show itself, I mean that things will be smashing and breaking, maybe burning. People will be attacked physically. Chairs will topple over. Pictures will fly off walls and smash and break. Vases will fall off. You'll hear pounding sounds. The poltergeist is a German word. It means mischievous or noisy ghost, but there are fire poltergeists, water poltergeists, puncturing poltergeists, many different types, rock-throwing poltergeists. These are the ones that you hear mostly about. I would say at least once a week, if you were to look through all the newspapers in the United States, you would find what we call rock-throwing poltergeists. These rocks fall on the homes. They usually materialize about 30, 40 feet above the house. They come down in a slow, zigzag manner, striking the house, but sometimes breaking windows.
And they're warm to the touch.
Oh, yeah, that's an apport. These stones have been brought from many, many miles away. In Bethlehem, Connecticut, in 1953, which is maybe 20 minutes from where we're sitting right now. Michael Healy, he described himself as a woodcutter. He had a small building where he used to cut the wood and carve things out, I guess, and for 2 years, stones just fell on that house periodically, not 24 hours a day, periodically. They had state troopers, they had the town constable, they had neighbors, friends all surrounding the woods, thinking that somebody was doing that. But how could anybody, have stones appear and come down in a zigzag manner? There's no way you can do
gravity.
Yeah, it defies
that. But
gravity.
they were
It
trying
does.
to think logically, right? So eventually it did stop. And if you drive by that house today, you'll see a shrine out in front. And many of the stones that fell from the sky actually are made up in the foundation of that shrine.
Yeah, that's what he
But
did
that's-
with it.
Then at Eichler's Cove, which is right near
Right
here,
here,
too,
right here.
Lake Zor, we had stones weighing over 20 pounds that were falling on 3 different dwellings there. And
They did damage.
I'll never forget it. We were called out by Channel 8 news team. We went out there and there was a detective and a police officer standing there by a car, and they had this kid. He was probably 14 years old. I said, well, what's happening? We got him. I said, you got him? I said, who? They said, he's the one who's been doing it. We caught him up on the hill up there. I said, wait a minute. This boy was up on that hill, threw 20-pound stones that came down in a slow zigzag manner. How did he do that? He did it. We know he did it. The Newtown police. All of a sudden, the detectives hit right on the shoulder with a stone. The kid standing right alongside him.
Then what happened? They let him go?
They let the kid go. What else could they do?
They definitely
we explained to them that this is a typical poltergeist phenomena, the falling of stones. Now, it amazes me. You could ask any 10-year-old kid today, what's a poltergeist? They'd know. But you ask this detective or the cop, they don't know. I mean, where have they been? They got their heads in some kind of a sand pile someplace, like an ostrich?
You're just like that Bridgeport.
Yeah,
Chief.
Bridgeport.
Yes.
That's
Walsh.
a good example.
Walsh.
He's still alive,
And
right?
again, Walsh,
Oh,
why
yes,
don't
he's
you
still
come
alive.
forward and tell the truth? It's 25 years later. Look, you put your own men on the carpet. They were telling about all the things that were happening in that house on Lindley Street, hour after hour. You come along and say that a 9-year-old girl fooled at least 8 or 9 cops in the kitchen, ourselves, 4 or 5 people, a couple of reporters, the parents. That kid could move a refrigerator weighing over 400 pounds without a singer do it.
He made the patrolmen look like a bunch of idiots.
He made
That's
the
right.
church look like idiots,
Why
too.
doesn't he come forward? He's retired. The crowds are gone. He doesn't have to worry about putting up barricades anymore.
Yeah.
Walsh, come forward. Tell the truth. You made these people look foolish, and how the media could fall for that is beyond me. He said the little girl was a ventriloquist. She was the one that was making the sounds coming around the cat. He never said who was the one psychiatrist that found that out, or how they proved the kid was a ventriloquist. She was not. We were there. We know what we heard. We know what we
So that was
seen.
a real haunting, huh?
That was a
Oh.
poltergeist haunting.
That was a poltergeist.
That was a poltergeist.
That
Something
went
bad?
on.
Something bad.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
bad.
Smashing,
And Tony,
breaking.
it goes on round the clock. It never lets up. It's not like it's going to start once it gets dark. That's all day,
You
all
walk
night.
into a house like Lindley Street.
Oh, it's
You know how
just-
like some hauntings, the phenomena will stop when you go to
Yes,
investigate it?
yes.
But in Lindley Street, it didn't, huh?
No.
Well, let
No.
me give you an example.
Tell him about the electricity part of it, honey.
Well-
That's what's interesting.
I was sitting in the living room. It was a very small house. I could see the table and chairs in the kitchen. All of a sudden, you would get this ozone smell like electricity.
Yeah.
I could see the table starting to shake. It went right up in the air, did a flip, came down. The chairs flew in all different directions. Not only once. This happened every day.
Who
Every
saw
day.
this happen?
Oh,
Police officers, firemen,
numerous.
Chief Swirling. Chief Swirling walked in, the fire department. He seen 3 huge reclining chairs jumping all over the place. We used to call them Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear. He said, there must be some kind of witchcraft there. And the first priest that went in there, what was his name from the chancellery?
Oh, he was from St. Patrick's,
What was
Sonny.
his name?
I don't remember the name right now.
Well, he walked in and said,
from St. Patrick's.
it's definitely something diabolical. But after the Chancellery Bishop talked to him, he changed his mind
No,
fast.
they wouldn't
did?
allow.
Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous what they do.
It's
All right,
really
so
a shame.
when you walk into a house such as Lindley Street,
It's very uncomfortable.
it's almost like you don't need to be told what's happening
no,
because
you're looking-
there's
it's
things
right
People
happening.
all
there.
talking excitedly.
Yeah.
I remember when I came into the house that first time, I think it was November 23rd, wasn't it?
Yeah.
1974. There were policemen in there, firemen in there. They were all talking excitedly. I have this all on tape, you know. The first thing I did was interview the officers, the firemen, the family, anybody that's seen or experienced anything.
These
I
police
know that's
officers had
important.
written statements too, right?
Right.
And yes, it has that.
I have all the police statements. I knew from experience they would say, the little kid did it. That's a cliche they use. I don't know why. I think it's because the police don't know what to do about it. You know, they walk in there, they want to help, but they don't know what they're up against.
Good night, everyone.